Years ago, I took a group of church members to Israel on a tour. I used to take them out 50 by 50, and they said they learned more from me in 2 weeks in Israel than 6 months of me in the pulpit. And I think that's true. But I took them out, and then they went home. I had a few more days in Israel on my own before another group of 50 church members came out and joined me, and I would show them around. And my wife went back with the first group, and the last thing she said to me before getting on the plane in Israel was, "David, did you ask for a postal vote?" I said, "No, I forgot to." She said, "Well, it's a general election while you're still here with the next group, and you won't be able to vote." I said, "Oh well, I'll stay here and pray." And that night was the annual celebration of independence of Israel, and I was out on the street dancing with young people till 4 in the morning. It was exciting. And there were babies just lying under shrubs on the sidewalk, and perfectly safe to be in a safe situation. Like that was wonderful. And I went back to the hotel and I said, "Lord, I can't vote in the election, but would you mind if I asked you, who are you voting for?" Because I believe God has the casting vote in every election. And he can either vote in justice and give you the leader you don't want but need, or he can vote in mercy and give you the one he chooses for your good. He's got the casting vote. And he told me, "I'm voting for Margaret Thatcher." And I said, "Margaret Thatcher? All right, Lord, but is there anything you want me to tell her?" That was a silly question to ask, because he answered. And he said, "I want you to tell her to get back to the faith her father had. He was a Methodist preacher. And I want you to tell her to make friends with Menachem Begin, the Prime Minister of Israel, as soon as she can." So I pulled out a sheet of hotel note paper and, "Dear Mrs. Thatcher, I want to be the first in the country to congratulate you on becoming Prime Minister, because God is going to vote for you. And there are 2 things he wants you to know. He wants you to get back to the faith that your father had, and he wants you to make a friend of Menachem Begin of Israel as soon as you get into power." And then I thought, I can't send this letter. I thought, she'll think I'm a crazy. The next morning, some friends from Jerusalem picked me up in Tel Aviv to take me to their home in Jerusalem, where I would stay for the few days until the next group joined me. And I said, "Could you please take me to the post office first?" Because I had gone walking in the streets of Tel Aviv in the dark after I'd gone back to the hotel and written the letter. And I looked into a bookshop window, and in the middle of the window was a text from Isaiah framed, and it said, "For Jerusalem's sake, I will not keep silent. For Zion's sake, I will not hold my peace." And I said, "All right, Lord, I'll send the letter." So the next morning when my friends picked me up, I said, "We need to go to the post office first. I've got an important letter to post." We went to the post office and I pushed the letter through, and the girl behind the counter, I said, "I don't care how much it costs, how many shekels, just put as many stamps as it needs to get there tomorrow." And she stuck them all on. And my friend said, "What's in that letter?" I said, "Well, I'm just telling Mrs. Thatcher she's going to be Prime Minister." And my friend said, "Well, you'll be in our house when the election happens, and if she's not elected, we'll kick you out of our house." And I said, why? And they said, we don't entertain false prophets. Anyway, she got in, and I didn't know, but one of the first letters she wrote was to write back to that letter. And when she was interviewed by the press outside 10 Downing Street, they said, what are you going to do as Prime Minister? The first thing she said was, I'm going to try and recover the faith my father had. Now, I knew nothing about this. And I'm out in Israel, taking other church members around. Time comes to go home. And in those days, you had to leave your tickets with the authorities, and they gave them back to you when you left. And they gave all my group of church members a ticket for British Airways. And they gave me a ticket for El Al. That's the Israeli airline, and it means every landing always late. But El Al. And I said, look, you can't separate me from the group. I'm their leader. And I'm responsible for getting them home. They said, the tickets are fixed. And so I walked towards an El Al jumbo jet and climbed aboard that, with a little Jewish man called Menachem Begin. I said, where are you going? He said, I'm going to London to try and meet Margaret Thatcher. I said, it's all fixed up. That experience taught me that God is in charge of the nations. And history is His story. And I began to get a much bigger picture of God. The God who settles elections, the God who moves nations around, the God who brings the proud low and raises the humble high.